Why was everyone ignoring her at the briefing table? The room was filled with clipped voices, checklists, and the stiff confidence of men who believed doctrine could tame the desert. But at the edge of it all, she stood quiet in an unpatched flight suit, spiral notebook pressed against her thigh, a scuffed glove with a red Sharpie line scarring the knuckles. No rank displayed, no swagger, just the kind of silence that dared the wind itself to speak first. Eva Morales had learned long ago that silence unsettled people more than shouting ever did. She counted gusts with her lips, every breath catalogued like a priest tracing beads. The others mistook it for stillness. They didn't know the math she was running in her head, the hidden calculations the desert demanded if you wanted to bring people home alive. Outside, rotors slapped the hot air, impatient, waiting. The call had already come across the radio, urgent surgical. One adult, one child, both bleeding in a village already dimmed by dust. A 9-line no commander wanted to hear, and yet every one of them knew delay could cost lives. Captain Trevor Lang, clipboard tucked under his elbow like a badge, jabbed his finger toward the horizon where a wall of sand boiled and roared. "Wave off," he said. "That's not flying weather. Risk tolerance exceeded. We wait." No one argued, no one except her. Eva didn't raise her voice. She simply said, "If we read the wind right, we don't wave off, we go." A sentence as soft as it was dangerous. Lang's jaw tensed. To him, she was a consultant, maybe a contractor, temporary, disposable, someone who would walk away before the sand claimed another set of lungs. He had no reason to trust her, not when she wore no insignia, carried no title, and acted as if her notebook held answers worth more than his binder of diagrams. But Eva didn't look at him. She looked at the air. Rook, the young crew chief, caught her eye. He'd been the first to bring her coffee, the way some soldiers do when instinct tells them trust is deserved before it's ordered. He noticed the Sharpie scar on her glove. He never asked. She never offered. But in this moment, with the desert breathing heavier, he realized she'd already made her choice. "Captain," she said quietly, "the gusts are in sets, 5 small, 1 big, over and over. If we time the approach between the sets and commit tail into wind, we'll ride a clean pocket. We'll need a reference pole, crew chief count. I'll call power margins and commit above abort line. It can be done." Lang smirked as if her words were theater. "Warrant, you're not signing my risk. If you want to be a hero, find a movie set." But then Sergeant Laya Cohen, the flight medic, spoke. Her voice carried no drama, only numbers. "Sir, the ground says the child isn't breathing well. The adult is bleeding out. If we wait, we don't avoid risk, we outsource it. To people who don't have a helicopter." Silence cracked the air. Lang's face shifted, pride and fear wrestling like rivals in the same boot. Eva opened her notebook. Page 21. Wind arcs and dots sketched in pencil. She angled it toward him, steady as a surgeon. 30 minutes, 5 in 1 pattern, we can set down between gusts. Not guesswork, not bravery, just timing. Lang laughed under his breath. "What is this? A Navy deck with nets? You're asking me to trust chalk marks and a shovel." Rook spoke up before he realized what he'd done. "Or a picket. Anything vertical, off-center from the pad. Something the eyes can trust when the world turns milk. Paint it, tape it, mark it. I'll call her home." Lang turned slowly, as if the words were insubordination dressed in suggestion. But the radio cut through again. The boy was cyanotic. The man's bleeding slowed but hadn't stopped. Night was coming. Eva shut the notebook, voice calm. "We're not trying to be brave, sir. We're trying to be accurate." That sentence hit harder than volume ever could. Sergeant Hatcher, maintenance chief, wiped grease from his hands and stepped forward. He'd been listening all along. "Sir," he said, steady, "she's not wrong. If they're going, I'll mark the aborts. I'll trust her margins." Lang asked, softer now, "You sign it?" "I do." And there it was, the quiet mutiny of truth against procedure. Lang could say no. He was entitled to. Some systems would reward him for it. But Laya's eyes, the radio bleeding seconds, and the desert's indifference left him smaller than his clipboard. He did what leaders only learn when their knowledge has a gap. He stepped aside. "Fine," he said. "I'll ride the jump seat. If you deviate, I call it, understood." "Understood," Eva replied. They moved fast because the desert demanded speed disguised as calm. Hatcher built a reference pole from a broken antenna and chalk dust. Rook marked it with reflective tape. Laya inventoried airway kits, blood, chest seals. Eva touched the helicopter like a pianist checking keys, pausing at the skid long enough to press her knuckles against the metal, red line glinting like a ribbon. "Rook," she said, "you own my eyes on short final. If I say blind, you bring me home. No argument." "Yes, ma'am." "Laya," she continued, "you sing patient numbers the second we touch. No delay. I need to know if fuel buys us another lift." "Yes." Lang climbed into the jump seat. He gripped the strap like it might steady his doubt. Eva settled into the left seat. She flicked switches, muted alarms, and whispered not a prayer but a calculation. She tore a page from her notebook, scrawled brown-out Bible, page 1, and slid it under the glare shield. A reminder, write down what survives. "Tower dust-off 31, Rook called. His voice was clear, steady. "Launching urgent surgical, route green 2, tail into wind on arrival. We have the dust. And the will." The rotors folded heat. The horizon stepped back. And somewhere out there, in a street whose name mattered only to the people who loved it, a boy tried to breathe while a soldier tried not to die. The helicopter lifted into a sky that loved them and hated them in equal measure. The desert wasn't done testing them. It never was. The air above the irrigation ditch stank of old water, shallow protection against the desert's cruelty. Eva flew low, reading the pedals with her legs, power with her spine. She narrated, not for bravado but for bridge building, words that stitched reality to the 3 lives inside the cockpit. "Power margin good by 3, tails happy. Ride the ditch for 5, then drift north." Laya prepared her kit, lips pressed tight, eyes hard with math. Rook leaned into the glass, scanning. No power lines, no wires, blessed phrase. Lang scribbled notes. He'd expected arrogance or blind luck. Instead, he heard precision, patience, craft. The village rose ahead, a patchwork of roofs and alleys, dust curling from every corner. On a rooftop, someone waved a faded panel tied to a broomstick, a desperate flag in a storm. "Vector panel, bearing 15, Rook said. "Pad center in the square. Recommend offset left to keep crew out of cone." "Concur," Eva answered. "Low recon first. If dust builds faster than plan, we abort. No arrogance today." Lang's eyes fell to her glove, the red line across the knuckles. At first he thought it was decoration. Then he saw the way her eyes flicked to it in pedal turns. Not fashion, memory, a warning line to herself. The recon circle teased the dust into boiling. Curtains of grit rose, then sagged, predictable only to the patient. The 5-1 gusts kept their promise. Between sets lived the pocket. "Wind backs 3 degrees on 6th gust," Rook said. "Tail swings wrong if we don't commit. Recommend tail in." Eva nodded. "Tail in it is, commit on pocket." Laya ready the door. "Ready." The descent began. The desert tested them. At 20 feet, dust surged like a curtain yanked for applause. Roofs vanished. The panel disappeared. The donkey in the square went first, then the world. "I'm blind," Eva said. "Clock calls now," Rook answered without hesitation. 2 o'clock, drift right 1 down 1. Hold tail clear. Wait for pocket. The dust betrayed itself. A window 3 seconds wide. "Pocket now." Eva didn't hesitate. She slid the machine into the slit before the storm remembered its cruelty. "Skid coming in," Rook said. "Down 1, tail happy, more left pedal, good correction." The right skid kissed earth. The left followed. The machine settled as if onto a bed it had been promised. "Hold," Eva said. And then Laya was out the door, her hands already on the wounded. Lang clutched the strap, heart pounding, notebook forgotten. He had come expecting recklessness. What he saw was craft, a discipline deeper than doctrine. And for the first time that day, he wondered if silence, not swagger, was the sound of mastery. What happens when the world disappears around you? At 20 feet, the square below them dissolved into a storm of tan. The faded panel vanished first, swallowed whole. Then the roof corners blurred, then the donkey in the square, until nothing remained but milk-colored violence. Eva's voice was steady. "I'm blind." Rook's reply came fast, sharp, the rhythm of a man who knew hesitation was death. "Clock calls now, 2 o'clock. Drift right 1, down 1, hold, tail clear, wait for the pocket." The storm pulsed. 3 long seconds later, a window cracked open, thin, stingy, temporary. "Pocket now." Eva moved not like someone reacting, but like someone answering a question she had already solved. She stepped the helicopter into the gap, pedal already set for the correction she knew would come. The right skid touched down, then the left. The machine settled into dust as if the earth itself had allowed a small favor. "Hold," she ordered. The world obeyed. Laya was out the door in an instant, as if her body had rehearsed the motion 1,000 times. She dropped to one knee beside the soldier, blood seeping through a pressure wrap, lips pale but eyes still stubborn. She spoke little, hands working fast, tourniquet checked, dressing tightened, IV line in before the man's fear could name itself. Then the child, a boy of maybe 10. His breaths came shallow, ragged, as if he'd borrowed them from someone else. Laya tilted his head, pressed an ear to his chest, counted seconds against the storm. A bagged breath, a small rise in color, the faintest sound of lungs willing to try again. "We're okay," she said softly. "Not safe, not out, but okay." Rook's voice cut through again. 2 patients, 1 litter, 1 seat, skids are safe, tail clear, dust polite for 20 seconds. Lang clutched his strap, eyes wide. He had come aboard to monitor for reckless bravado. What he saw instead was craft, precision layered on patience, accuracy clothed in humility. "Loading now," Laya called, lifting the man first. "Bottle with a hole comes before the candle." Her triage was brutal math, but the right kind. The boy would wait seconds. The man had none. Rook latched straps with the hands of a mechanic who hated turbulence. He counted every buckle like they were prayers. "Commit power," Eva said. Rook called it back like a vow. 3, 2, 1, dust surging in 2, tail clear, up 1, hold, up. The helicopter rose. Dust clawed, but Eva was already ahead of it. By the time the storm remembered its cruelty, they had climbed past it. The panel reappeared, then the rooftops, then the donkey still unimpressed. "Dust off 31, clear of pad with 2 souls added," Rook transmitted. His voice held the tremor of relief he refused to admit. The desert hissed beneath them, angry at being tricked. But anger doesn't matter when altitude holds. The gravel strip came alive as they approached. Medics ran with litters, a chaplain stood quietly in the corner, and the air carried that strange silence, half relief, half grief waiting its turn. Eva eased the helicopter onto the pad like setting down a fragile glass. No drama, no excess, just presence. Laya handed the child off, speaking his name aloud. Names made medicine stronger. The soldier squeezed Rook's wrist once, silent code for "I saw you." Rook squeezed back, "I saw you first." Lang climbed out last. He stood in gravel, shoulders heavy with conflict, watching Eva jot numbers in her notebook. She marked power margins without flourish, as if the day's miracle was simply data. He found words awkward on his tongue. "Warrant Morales, I said we should wave off. I was wrong." She closed her notebook. Her face was not prideful, not scornful, just steady. "You were careful. Care is good. Sometimes care needs better math." Lang swallowed. For the first time in years, his training manuals felt insufficient. He nodded like a student. "Teach me the math." Eva's answer was almost a whisper. Gladly, after we do this right. She glanced toward the surgical tent where the commander himself had stepped out, worry heavy in his eyes. He didn't shake hands. He only asked, "Are my people alive?" "They are," Laya answered first, before anyone else could audition for heroics. "Credit the ground who held them together, and the pilot who found the pocket." The commander looked at Eva then, his face etched with that rare balance, pride and humility sharing the same chair. The desert, however, wasn't finished. It never was. By late afternoon, the call came again. A clipped, panicked voice across the net, roll over north of the lanes, driver pinned, juvenile in the back seat, head trauma, dust worse than the square, imminent darkness. Someone in ops muttered into a hot mic, "You've got to be kidding me," then apologized to the frequency like it had feelings. The crew didn't hesitate, not because they weren't tired, but because tired wasn't an excuse. Hatcher sprinted to the bird, tightening latches, tapping metal like it could whisper its secrets. Rook reloaded gear with the efficiency of someone folding laundry while planning a campaign. Laya checked and rechecked, because medicine trusted math, not hope. And Lang, he did something he never expected of himself. He asked for work, not authority. Permission to ride again. "I'll carry the stretcher, the IV bag, whatever's heavy." Eva looked at him once, not as a captain, not as a skeptic, just as another set of hands. "Yes, but you say what you see. If you don't know the note, mouth the words." The desert outside was already darker, meaner. The gusts had shortened their rhythm. 4 small, 1 big, and the big came carrying stones. They launched anyway. Eva's voice carried calm over intercom. "Talk to me." Rook scanned the horizon. "Route stubborn, crosswind if we cut distance. Recommend long dogleg, come from down sun. Keep worst dust behind tail." "Concur," Eva replied. "We'll spend the minutes to save the seconds that matter." Lang underlined it in his notebook. Save the seconds that matter. His other doctrines suddenly seemed like empty slogans. Ahead, the rollover vehicle lay twisted on its side, half buried against a ditch wall. Soldiers had scraped together a helipad from stones, desperation disguised as planning. Dust sheeted across the slope in treacherous waves, not rolling but collapsing, sudden as a trap. Eva tightened her grip, calm in her voice. "This is not the square. This is a trampoline. We stage at 30 feet. Read the sheeting. Commit only if the pocket shows." Laya adjusted straps, ready for a hover step if the dust proved cruel. "Copy. I won't love it, but I'll do it." Hover steps, the kind of maneuver that aged medics and made pilots pray. They circled once. The dust whispered through scrub with a sibilant hiss, the herald of the big gust. Eva counted it, tail into wind, reference pole passenger side, no poetry, just math. She brought them in. The desert reached to claim them. The helicopter nosed into the storm, its skids hunting for Earth in a world that refused to hold still. Eva's voice was calm, blind. Rook answered. 12 o'clock, down 1, hold pocket in 4, 3, 2, 1 now. The pocket was a slit, barely wider than a coin, but Eva had flown with worse. She slid the bird into it with the precision of a surgeon aligning scalpel to vein. The skids found dirt, the reference pole flickered. Laya vaulted down with a triangle bandage already in her hand. She went to the driver first, his ribs crushed by the wheel. His eyes showed fear but also trust, the kind of courage that looked like stillness. "You're doing the bravest thing," she told him. "You're holding still." The boy in the back seat blinked, pupils blown, lost to words. She touched his shoulder, whispering, "It's okay to be scared. We're the kind of scared that helps." The dust swirled, time collapsed. Rook's voice cut in. "Pocket unstable, recommend hover step. Driver first, boy second if the desert allows it." Eva's hand tightened on the cyclic. "Hover step it is. Rook, count me like you mean it." "I always mean it," he said. The skids lifted, then kissed back down, indecisive by design. The trade began. Lang, stretcher braced in his hands, met Laya's eyes. Together, they pulled the driver free in a choreography older than pride. Up one, Rook called. Forward two, hold down half, steel, go. They had him, strapped, secured, lifted. Eva brought in power. The helicopter rose, dust clawing at it, but too slow. They had won one soul back. The boy still waited. And the desert still had teeth. How long can a child wait for rescue when the desert itself is against him? The skids had barely cleared when Laya's voice pierced through intercom, sharp, urgent. We're not done. The boy's crashing. We go back. Eva's hand eased the collective. Hover steps in dust. Madness, some would call it. But madness is only a word used by people who never had to weigh minutes against breath. Rook, she said calmly, we trade again. His voice carried steel. Copy. Recommend tight circle tail to wind back into the sheet. Pocket won't hold more than 6 seconds. Commit once, not twice. Lang gripped the stretcher strap, knuckles pale. His training told him this was beyond doctrine, but his eyes told him doctrine was already obsolete. Eva dropped them low. Dust surged, angry, clawing, daring them to falter. Blind, she whispered. 3 o'clock, Rook countered. Down one, hold, pocket coming now. The helicopter kissed dirt again, softer than the desert deserved. Laya was out, sprinting to the vehicle. The boy's head lolled, breath shallow, eyes unfocused. She worked fast, sliding her arm under his small frame, whispering words meant for courage. I've got you. Stay. Don't leave just yet. Lang leapt from the jump seat without orders, meeting her at the door. Together they carried the child, his tiny hand limp against their gloves. Rook barked commands over the storm. Forward two, hold down half, secure, now. They loaded him, straps buckled, Laya's mask sealed. She began bagging breaths into lungs that wanted to quit. Commit power, Eva said. Rook's count rose like a heartbeat. 3, 2, 1, up. The helicopter surged, dust chasing but failing. The desert cheated once more. At altitude, silence broke. Not quiet silence. The kind that filled headsets with the sound of only breathing. Lang stared at the boy, chest rising under Laya's rhythm. He had carried manuals, checklists, and pride into this deployment, but never had he carried something so fragile, so heavy. Laya didn't look up. He'll make it if we don't waste seconds. Eva's voice was low, thoughtful. We won't waste them. Lang found his throat dry. He looked at her, the woman he dismissed as reckless. How do you know? How do you keep trusting pockets that barely exist? Her eyes stayed on the horizon. Because the desert lies, it tells you there's nothing, but if you learn its rhythm, it always gives you something small, enough if you're listening. Her words were not bravado, they were confession, and in them Lang heard the sound of someone who had lost more than manuals could account for. The pad came alive again, medics rushing, voices raised in the language of urgency. The boy was carried off, his breath steadier, Laya's bag still pressed to his face until hands took him. The driver followed, groaning but alive. This time no one doubted, not the medics, not the commander, not even Lang. Eva shut down systems, her movements measured, ritualistic. She tore another page from her notebook, scribbling diagrams. She didn't write words of glory, she wrote process, margins, timing. Lang stepped close, gravel crunching under boots. He hesitated, then asked, "What is that notebook really?" Eva slid it half shut. "A debt. Every time the desert spares someone, I write down why, because memory fails, paper doesn't." He nodded, the weight of her answer settling deeper than he expected. Night fell, the desert grew crueler in its quiet. They gathered in the dim light of a hangar, the hum of generators filling silence. Rook cleaned straps, Hatcher bent over tools. Laya's hands shook as she repacked gear, tremor of exhaustion she refused to admit. Lang approached Eva again, no clipboard this time. His voice was raw. I thought your silence meant arrogance. Now I see it's something else. What is it? She paused, pen still against paper. It's grief. The kind you carry until you turn it into instruction. Otherwise, it carries you. The room hushed. Even the generator seemed to quiet for a beat. Lang swallowed hard. And the Sharpie mark on your glove, does it mean something? She looked at it once, then away. Someone I couldn't bring home, I mark it to remember, to never waste what seconds remain. Her voice caught barely, but enough. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was respect. Before dawn, another call cut the night. Convoy hit, survivors trapped, dust thicker, route longer. Lang didn't flinch this time. He looked at Eva, then at Rook, then Laya. What do you need from me? Eva answered without looking up from her notebook. Not to doubt, just to see, and to carry what's heavy. He nodded, done. The desert outside waited. The gusts had new teeth. The mission would demand more than craft, it would demand belief. And belief, they all knew now, was heavier than any stretcher. What does belief sound like in the dark? The desert whispered differently at night. It wasn't just dust anymore. It was the weight of silence, the kind that pressed against glass and skin, daring you to doubt. Eva sat in the cockpit, face dim under red light, eyes fixed on the horizon. Rook read weather feeds, though they gave little comfort. Wind irregular, 10 knots cross, sheets, not gusts, worse than the rollover. Laya pulled straps across her pack, lips moving as if counting each buckle was a prayer. Lang steadied a stretcher against the hangar wall, shoulders rigid. He wasn't a skeptic anymore, but neither was he a believer. Not yet. The radio crackled. Ops voice. Convoy Bravo 2, 2 vehicles disabled, 3 wounded, 1 critical, dust severe, visual on flares only. Someone muttered in the background, half curse, half plea, then silence again. Eva's tone was simple, we go. No one argued. The night air was heavier, its cold disguised by sand. As the rotor blades gathered momentum, the desert seemed to lean closer, listening. Lang braced in the jump seat, notebook tucked away this time. He didn't want words. He wanted to carry weight. Rook's voice guided. Route in 30, recommend offset, hit them from down sun, avoid ridge turbulence. Eva nodded, adjusting without hesitation. Noted. Lang studied her, trying to decode the ease. How can you sound so certain? She didn't look back, because doubt makes you slow, and slow is crueler than wrong. The words sank like stones in him. At 30 miles, flares appeared, thin streaks against the dark, trembling in the dust. A faint marker, a fragile invitation. The convoy lay crippled against a shallow wadi. One vehicle smoked, its hood torn open. Figures moved in frantic rhythm, some crawling, some dragging others, their shapes blurred by dust. Rook called it first. Dust shear on approach, slab terrain, recommend high recon orbit. Eva's eyes narrowed. No, too much time. They'll bleed before orbit gives us anything new. Commit from east. Pockets will be smaller but repeatable. Lang almost spoke, his old training rearing up, but he held it. He was learning silence could be stronger than argument. The descent was like sliding into a throat that didn't want them. Dust closed around glass. Shadows blurred into nothing. Blind, Eva murmured. Rook's voice steadied the world. 1 o'clock, drift left 1, down half, hold, pocket in 3, 2, 1 now. They broke through for a heartbeat, just enough. Skids kissed earth. Laya and Lang leapt out, carrying the stretcher together. The dust clawed at them, pulling, biting, blinding, but they pushed forward. The first casualty was a soldier with shrapnel through his abdomen, pale lips quivering. He reached toward Lang, grip weak but insistent. Lang clasped his hand. The man whispered nothing, but in his eyes lived a simple plea. Don't drop me. I won't, Lang said, voice shaking. I swear. They loaded him. The second was worse. A woman soldier pinned by twisted steel. Blood soaked her fatigues, and every breath rattled like a loose hinge. Laya knelt, hands steady though her eyes burned. "You'll ride with me, we'll breathe together." Lang braced the wreckage, pulling with every muscle, teeth grinding. Metal shrieked, shifted, finally surrendered. They dragged her free, her chest heaving like a drowning swimmer gasping for one more surface. The dust surged, Eva's voice was sharp. "Hover unstable, 6 seconds only." Rook barked the cadence. "Up half, forward 1, hold down 1, secure now." They loaded her, Laya never breaking contact, hand pressed firm against the soldier's sternum as if willing it to rise again. The last casualty was a boyish private, his legs mangled, his voice hoarse from screaming until there was nothing left. He clung to a photo in his hand, blurred, sand-scuffed, but still showing a family smiling against some faraway lake. Lang bent low, eyes meeting his. "I'll carry it, I'll carry both." The private's grip didn't loosen, but his breathing slowed, trust slipping into place where fear had been. They lifted him, straps biting, stretcher swaying. Dust blinded them. Rook's cadence cut through, tail clear, "Commit now or pocket dies." Eva's voice was calm steel, "Commit." The helicopter clawed free, blades roaring against dust that howled in betrayal. The desert shrank beneath them, cheated once more, its cruelty postponed. At altitude, silence claimed them again. Laya's voice cracked the first time since dawn. "We almost lost her, the chest wound, seconds only." Eva answered gently, "Seconds matter, and tonight you won them." Lang looked down at his gloves, blood streaking leather, dust ground into every crease. His voice trembled. "I thought manuals were the truth, but the desert has no doctrine, does it?" Eva's reply was soft. "The desert has one, it doesn't care, we write the rest." Lang nodded, eyes stinging, "Not from dust this time." Back at the pad, medics surged again, the night alive with urgency. Stretchers vanished into lighted tents. Shouts filled the air, then quiet. The kind of quiet that decided who would live to see morning. Lang stood outside the bird, legs unsteady, chest heavy. Eva closed her notebook, another page filled with the desert's lessons. She looked at him, "Still think I'm reckless?" He shook his head. "No, you're listening to something I never learned to hear." Her eyes softened, just barely. "Then listen now. The desert doesn't care about medals, manuals, or names. It only cares if we use our seconds well. That's the only math that matters." Lang stared at her, a truth finally blooming inside him. Belief wasn't loud. It wasn't even certain. It was silent, steady, carried in action. And in that silence, the desert itself seemed to pause, as if conceding just for one night that belief could be heavier than sand. What happens when the desert is gone, but the silence remains? The pad lay still after the night's rescues, generators humming low, tents lit like fragile lanterns against the dark. Yet Eva stayed in the cockpit long after the blades had stopped. She didn't move, didn't speak, only stared at the Sharpie mark on her glove as though it might answer back. Lang lingered nearby, restless. He wanted to ask, but the weight in her stillness warned him off. Some truths weren't pulled by force. They arrived when they chose. Finally she spoke, not to him, not to anyone, to the silence. Her name was Dana. Lang froze. He hadn't asked. He hadn't earned the answer, but she gave it anyway. "She was in the left seat," Eva whispered, voice almost carried away by the desert wind. "Same dust, same lies, only this time I misread it. Seconds wasted. I marked my glove that night so I'd never let the desert steal twice, but grief doesn't obey marks." Her hand trembled once, then stilled. Lang said nothing. There were no words to balance that scale, only listening. Morning brought another call. A compound raid gone wrong. One operator missing, presumed alive. The team was fractured, scattered in the dust. The mission was delicate, no wide search, no noisy sweep. Quiet lift, quick in, quick out. Ops relayed it with the precision of paperwork. But for Eva, the words carried something else. Memory. The last time she'd gone quiet for a stranded teammate, it had ended with Dana's empty seat. Laya noticed the way Eva's jaw set. "You don't have to fly this one," she said softly. Eva's eyes narrowed. "Yes, I do." The compound appeared at dawn, flat roofs painted in dust, silence hanging over broken walls. Smoke curled faintly, evidence of gunfire hours old. Rook scanned, voice tight. No movement, no patrol, could be a trap. Eva kept her tone level. "Everything's a trap, doesn't change the math." Lang leaned forward, hesitant but firm. "Then what's the math now?" Her gaze flicked to him, brief, sharp. "One operator alive, minutes running out, margin slim, we trust the margin." It wasn't bravado, it was belief. They dropped low, dust swirled but not thick, enough to blind, not enough to excuse retreat. "Blind," Eva murmured. 11 o'clock, Rook answered. "Down one, hold, pocket in two now." The skids touched dirt, silence pressed in. Laya moved first, Lang close behind, both armed though neither were shooters. They advanced toward a broken wall, rifles borrowed from the convoy team slung loose but ready. Inside they found him, the missing operator. Leg mangled, tourniquet high, lips cracked from thirst. He looked up at them, half laugh, half groan. "Took you long enough." Lang swallowed. The words he wanted to say died on his tongue. Instead he said, "We've got you." They lifted him, his weight heavy, his breath uneven. Dust rose again outside, faster this time, like the desert knew it was late but determined to collect its toll. Rook's voice snapped through, "Pocket collapsing, 10 seconds only." Eva's reply came sharp, "Make them enough." The stretcher swayed as they ran, dust biting their eyes. The operator clutched Lang's sleeve once, muttering, "Don't leave me." Lang tightened his grip, words fierce despite the storm. "Never." They reached the skids as the world vanished in a wall of sand. "Forward one," Rook called. "Hold, now load." They shoved the stretcher in, Laya climbing after, bagging breaths into cracked lungs before the straps were even tight. "Commit," Eva said. Rook's count cut through chaos. 3, 2, 1, up. The helicopter surged skyward, dust roaring, then falling away. They had him, alive. Back at the pad, medics rushed the operator into triage. The commander appeared again, eyes weary but grateful. He didn't speak thanks this time. He only nodded once to Eva and left. Lang remained by the bird, shaking, his gloves black with someone else's blood. He turned to Eva. "That Sharpie mark, you carry her every time you fly." Eva's expression didn't change, but her eyes did. "Yes." He hesitated, then asked, "Does it ever stop hurting?" She looked past him toward the horizon. "No, you just make sure the hurt isn't wasted." Her words sat heavy in him, a truth colder than manuals, sharper than doctrine. That night under the hangar's dim lights, Eva tore another page from her notebook. The diagram this time was sharper, clearer, arrows, timing, numbers precise. Lang leaned closer, almost reverent. "What are you writing?" Her voice was quiet, almost tender. "The brownout Bible, notes that outlive me, so the next pilot doesn't have to lose someone to learn what I did." Lang let the silence stretch before he whispered, "Then maybe Dana lives in every pocket you find." Eva's pen stopped, her hand trembled once, then she nodded. "Yes, maybe she does." The desert outside groaned with wind, indifferent, eternal. But in the hangar, under fragile light, belief began to take shape in ink and silence. And sometimes belief is enough. How do you measure a life saved against one lost? The next morning, the hangar smelled of oil, sweat, and something heavier, quiet pride buried beneath exhaustion. Laya checked her gear with mechanical rhythm. Rook walked the bird, touching every panel as though memorizing its skin. Lang stood with the stretcher again, but this time without hesitation. Eva sat on the skid, notebook balanced on her knee. She wasn't writing, just starring. The Sharpie mark on her glove caught the dim light, black ink against worn leather, a wound that refused to fade. Lang broke the silence. If you're building a Bible, doesn't that make you its prophet? Her lips curved, not into a smile, but something sharper. Prophets shout. I don't shout, I just listen. And write, Lang added. Eva looked at him, eyes steady. Writing is listening that doesn't fade. The call came before noon. Mortar strike outside a village. Civilians wounded, children among them. Dust thick. Roads mined. Ops hesitated, their voice on the net uncertain. We recommend ground evac safer. Eva cut in before anyone else. Negative, ground won't make it. We're closer, we're faster. Lang felt the words burn into him. She didn't say safer. She said faster, because sometimes faster was the only kindness. The village sprawled beneath them, flat roofs, narrow alleys, smoke curling in ribbons. Dust swirled, but not in waves, more like curtains drawn across a stage. Rook marked targets. Hot zone east, mortar tubes still warm, recommend west alley insertion. Eva adjusted without pause. Concur, west alley short skids. Lang squinted through the glass. There's barely enough room to breathe down there. Eva's voice held no edge, only fact. Breathing's optional, seconds aren't. The descent was surgical. Skids kissed uneven earth between walls so close the rotor tip seemed to scrape paint. Dust tried to lie again, whispering blindness, but Eva listened past it. Blind. 2 o'clock, down one, tail clear, hold. Rook's cadence was steady, a lifeline in the storm. The machine settled, trembling but alive. Laya and Lang jumped down, faces turned against the grit. Civilians rushed forward, mothers clutching children, an old man dragging a limp body, voices raised in a language of panic no manual had ever taught. A boy lay on the ground, chest rising too fast, too shallow. Laya dropped beside him, hands working, voice soft. Stay with me, just stay. Lang found himself with the old man, lifting a young woman whose arm was twisted wrong, bone pushing against skin. She groaned but didn't cry out. Dust stung his eyes, but for once he didn't curse it. He carried her every step a vow. Inside the helicopter, chaos was measured. Laya ventilated the boy, sweat streaking her temple. Rook strapped down patience with a precision that felt like prayer. Lang secured the young woman, her breath shallow, her eyes fluttering. Eva's voice was low, commit. Rook answered, 3, 2, 1, up. The bird rose, walls vanishing beneath them, dust howling like a thing betrayed. At altitude, the cockpit held silence again. Only breathing, only heartbeats. Lang broke it this time. His voice was soft, hesitant. How do you carry all of them? Dana, the soldier last night, the boy, the ones you save, the ones you don't. How do you not break under it? Eva didn't look at him. She kept her eyes on the horizon. I do break, every time, but breaking isn't the same as stopping. The words struck him harder than any doctrine ever had. Laya glanced up, voice rough with exhaustion. She's right, we all break. The point is whether you move after. Back at the pad, medics flooded the landing zone. The boy was carried off, still breathing. The young woman too. The old man refused a stretcher, limping beside them, hand brushing his daughter's shoulder. Lang stood in the gravel, helmet tucked under his arm, watching. The Sharpie mark on Eva's glove burned in his mind. He whispered, almost to himself, maybe the brownout Bible isn't about dust. Maybe it's about grief. Eva heard. She closed her notebook slowly. Grief writes the margins, but the math saves lives. Lang nodded. For the first time, he didn't feel like a passenger. He felt like part of the ink. That night the desert was quiet, too quiet. Eva sat alone again, notebook open. She drew not arrows this time, but a name, Dana, just once in the margin, small and sharp. Then she closed it. Lang saw her. He didn't intrude. He only whispered across the hangar, she lives in every page. Eva didn't answer, but her hand stilled. the Sharpie mark catching light like a scar turned into a signal. And in the silence that followed, the desert seemed, for the briefest moment, to listen back. What do you do when even the Bible you're writing has no page for what comes next? The call came at dusk, the horizon glowing red, dust rising like fire turned to sand. Op's voice was clipped, brittle with tension. Convoy strike, multiple casualties, dust conditions extreme. Recommendation, stand by until weather clears. Silence followed, the kind that begged for someone else to choose. Eva's answer was flat, final. Negative, they don't have until weather clears. Rook glanced at her, one brow raised. Margins. Her hand rested on the cyclic, unknown. That word, unknown, hung in the cockpit like a threat. Lang swallowed. He remembered her earlier words, prophets shout, but I just listen. But what do you do when listening gives you nothing? They launched into a sky already half blind. Dust veils rolled across the valley, tumbling in layers like stacked lies. Rook's voice, usually calm, carried strain. No pockets showing, not yet. Keep watching, Eva said. Lang leaned forward, heart pounding. What if there aren't any? What if this time the desert doesn't give us something small? Eva didn't look back. Then we make one. The words hit him like a blow. Bold, impossible, necessary. The convoy lay ahead, faint strobe lights flashing like dying stars. Through gaps in the storm, they glimpsed wreckage, burned metal, overturned wheels, soldiers crouched over wounded. But the storm swallowed it almost instantly. Blind, Eva murmured. Rook's cadence stumbled. No clock, no markers, I can't see it. Lang froze. He had never heard Rook falter. Eva's voice came steady, even softer. Then count the rhythm instead. Rook blinked, realizing. The gusts, 3 small, 1 large, use the inhale, not the exhale. Eva nodded, exactly. They waited. The desert pulsed, a cruel lung exhaling sand. On the inhale, the world softened, just slightly. Pocket, Rook whispered. Eva dropped them in. The skids touched earth in darkness, their presence less landing, more arrival. Lang leapt out first, dust clawing at his eyes. Figures emerged, 2 wounded dragged by comrades, 1 soldier limp, another screaming into grit. Laya hit the ground running, bag already open, kneeling in a storm that wanted her gone. She worked by touch, not sight, hands finding arteries, gauze pressing wounds, tourniquets winding. Lang bent to the limp one, a boy barely 20. His chest barely rose. He pressed 2 fingers to the neck, faint, so faint. He lifted him, the stretcher shaking as dust bit into skin. Go, Laya shouted. They loaded him, then the next. Rook pulled straps tight, every buckle fighting grit. Pocket closing, he warned. Eva's grip tightened. Hold, 1 more. A shout cut through the storm. Another soldier, crawling, dragging a comrade who wasn't moving. Blood streaked the dirt like paint. Lang met his eyes. No words, just urgency. Together they carried the last man. He was heavy, breath absent, body slack. Lang's chest clenched. He's gone. Eva's voice broke the storm. Not until the medics say so. Load him. Commit, she ordered. Rook's count cracked like lightning. 3, 2, 1, up. The helicopter surged skyward, the desert roaring beneath them like a beast denied its prey. At altitude, no one spoke for a long time. Laya bagged breaths into lungs that didn't want them. Lang held pressure on a wound with bare hands, blood soaking deep. Rook's hands trembled once before he shoved them still. Eva's face stayed forward, eyes on the horizon. The Sharpie mark on her glove looked darker in the cockpit light, as if Dana herself rode with them. Finally, Lang whispered, voice breaking. You said the desert always gives something small. What if next time it does? Eva's answer was quiet, almost prayer. Then we write that page too, and someone else won't have to. Back at the pad, medics swarmed again. 2 lived, 1 clung, 1 didn't. Lang stood in gravel, helmet under his arm, blood drying on his gloves. His eyes burned, throat tight. Eva climbed out last, notebook already open. She scribbled furiously, not words of glory, not names. Timing, rhythms, how the gusts inhaled before they exhaled. Lang stepped close, voice raw. How do you write when one still dies? Her eyes lifted, sharp but not unkind, because silence would mean he died twice. The words gutted him. That night the wind howled through the hangar rafters. Rook sat silent, Laya's head bowed against her pack, Lang staring at his blood-caked gloves. Eva wrote, page after page, ink against paper, grief turned into guidance. Lang finally spoke. You said prophets shout, but this is quieter, stronger. You're building something no storm can erase. Eva didn't answer. She only underlined a number twice, then closed the notebook. The desert outside raged on, blind and merciless. But inside, belief sat steady, heavier than dust, heavier than grief. And sometimes that was enough. What is dignity when the world is watching, when silence says more than words ever could? The storm had passed, but the sky carried its scars. Dust hung in the air like smoke after a fire, heavy, bitter, unwilling to settle. Op's voice broke over the net with one last plea. Final call, mass casualty, friendly convoy hit. Command requests immediate extract. High value among them, enemy closing. Silence fell in the hangar. Everyone looked to Eva. She closed her notebook slowly, sliding it into her vest as though sealing a chapter. The Sharpie mark on her glove caught the dim light, black and unwavering. Her voice was steady. We fly. No one argued, not anymore. The horizon burned with fire as they lifted. Rook scanned the chaos ahead, wreckage scattered across the wadi, flashes of enemy muzzle fire cutting through dust. Laya's hands hovered over her kit, already choosing who to save before she even saw them. Lang braced with the stretcher, no longer the skeptic, no longer the observer, just ready. The descent was war against the desert itself. Dust clawed, fire-lit shadows, and the ground shifted beneath their eyes. Blind, Eva whispered. Rook's cadence came hard, unshaken now. 3 o'clock, down 1, forward 2, hold pocket in 4, 3, 2, 1, now. The helicopter dropped into a chaos that wasn't supposed to be survivable, and yet they were there. Soldiers rushed forward, blood-soaked, eyes wild. One carried a lieutenant barely conscious, another dragged a sergeant whose leg ended at the knee. Screams cut through rotor thunder. Laya moved first, hands unshaking. Here, now, load him. Lang took weight without hesitation, hauling bodies, bracing wounds, his own arms trembling but refusing to fail. Too secured, Rook barked. Eva's eyes flicked to the chaos beyond. More figures staggered forward, civilians caught in the blast. A child clutched her mother, blood dark against her dress. Eva made her decision in a heartbeat. Room for 2 more, make it count. Lang sprinted, scooping the child with one arm, steadying the mother with the other. Dust blinded him, but he didn't stop. Not now. They loaded them, 4 lives against the weight of a storm. Commit, Eva ordered. The helicopter surged, blades tearing through dust, enemy fire cracking past the fuselage. Rook's voice came calm, unflinching. Tail clear, pocket stable, up 1, up. And then altitude. The desert shrank beneath them, its rage unanswered, its cruelty cheated. At the pad, medics swarmed again, stretchers pulled into tents glowing like fragile lanterns in the dark. Soldiers shouted, cried, collapsed. Lang stood in the gravel, gloves soaked, chest heaving. He looked at Eva, the woman he had once dismissed, the one who wrote in silence, the one who carried grief heavier than any stretcher. You were never reckless, he said quietly. You were writing something bigger than any of us could see. Eva removed her gloves slowly. The Sharpie mark stared back at her, Dana's mark. A wound, a vow, a voice without sound. She didn't speak, she didn't need to. Because dignity doesn't argue, it doesn't boast. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts.